Welcome to our channel, the darkest corner of YouTube, where we dig up the most chilling and eerie tales from around the world. Tonight, we're talking haunted graveyards, those patches of earth where the veil between our world and the next wears thin. We've got two spine-tingling stories, accounts so disturbing, so filled with raw terror, they'll cling to you long after the video ends. Turn off the lights if you dare, but be warned, once you invite the darkness in, it might not want to leave. Nestled deep in the heartland, forgotten by time and maps, lies the town of Whispering Pines. Or maybe it was Pine Whispers. The details are hazy, lost like so many things about that place. What remains vivid, etched onto the backs of my eyelids, are the stories. The town itself was small, barely a blip on the radar, but it held a graveyard, a sprawling testament to generations past. The locals, those few who dared to stay, whispered about the graveyard. They said when the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long skeletal shadows across the tilting headstones, the dead woke. Local historian as local historian. Not in the way you might think. No rotting corpses clawing their way out of the earth. No, this was something far more unsettling. It started with whispers. Faint at first, like the wind rustling through dry leaves, but as the moon climbed higher, fat and full in the sky, the whispers grew louder, morphing into words, then sentences, fragments of conversations from beyond the grave. Some claimed they could make out their names, called out in spectral voices that chilled them to the bone. Then there were the figures, translucent shapes gliding through the gnarled trees, their forms shifting, changing, never fully solidifying. They were most often seen in the moonlight, pale phantoms drifting between the headstones like wisps of smoke. One story, told around flickering candlelight, involved a young couple full of life and bravado who decided to spend the night in the graveyard. They wanted to prove the stories were just that, stories, nothing more than old wives' tales meant to scare children. They packed a blanket, a flashlight, and a bottle of liquid courage, laughing off the warnings of the townsfolk. They arrived at the graveyard as dusk painted the sky in hues of blood orange and bruised purple, their laughter echoing off the silent tombstones. They spread their blanket beneath the skeletal branches of an ancient oak, the tree's twisted limbs looking like grasping claws in the fading light. As darkness fell, the temperature plummeted, a bone-chilling cold that seeped into their bones despite the alcohol coursing through their veins. The whispers started, soft at first, but they quickly grew louder. The sound like 1,000 voices trapped beneath the earth, trying to claw their way out. The couple, their laughter now replaced with nervous glances, huddled closer together, their eyes darting around the darkened graveyard. Local historian as local historian. A pale, translucent figure emerged from the shadows, its form shifting and swirling like smoke in the wind. It glided towards them, its empty socket seeming to bore into their souls. The couple, paralyzed with fear, could only watch as the figure drew closer, its whispers growing louder, more insistent. They say the young man, his nerve finally breaking, scrambled to his feet and ran. The spectral whispers and the image of the ghostly figure burned into his mind. He didn't stop running until he reached the edge of town, his heart pounding in his chest. The young woman, however, remained rooted to the spot, frozen in terror. The ghostly figure stopped before her, its whispers washing over her like a cold wave. She never revealed what the figure said, what secrets it whispered to her that night, but she was never the same. Her hair, once a vibrant shade of auburn, turned snow white overnight. Her eyes, once filled with life and laughter, were now dull and distant, as if a part of her had been extinguished. She refused to speak of that night, her voice silenced by whatever horrors she had witnessed in the Whispering Graveyard. The town itself seemed to hold its breath, shrouded in an almost palpable silence, as if the very air was heavy with unspoken secrets. The townsfolk knew they had always known that some things were best left undisturbed. The Whispering Graveyard stood as a silent sentinel, a chilling reminder of the thin veil that separates our world from the next, and the restless spirits that wander there. The stories of the Whispering Graveyard served as a chilling reminder that some doors are not meant to be opened, some secrets are best left buried. Now, this next story, this one sticks with you. It happened on the outskirts of a town swallowed by time, a place they call Hollow Creek. But it wasn't the town itself that held the darkness. Oh no, it was what lay beyond its borders. The vengeful spirit cemetery. See, this wasn't your typical graveyard, no sir. This place was different, tainted by a grief so potent, so raw, it seeped into the very earth, twisting and warping everything it touched. They say a powerful sorcerer was laid to rest there centuries ago, a man consumed by bitterness and a thirst for vengeance, even in death. Locals whispered that he'd made a pact with something dark, something ancient and hungry, to fuel his magic. But pacts, as they always do, have a price, and this one, well, it cost him everything. He lost his family, his friends, his humanity, all in the pursuit of power. And in his final moments, as he took his last breath, he cursed this land. He cursed it with his dying breath, promising to haunt it for all eternity, to make sure no soul found peace within its confines. Ancient spirit as ancient spirit. Now the cemetery was desolate, choked by weeds and shrouded in an unnatural stillness. The iron gates, twisted and rusted, groaned like tormented souls, as if warning those who dared to approach. The air itself felt different there, thick and heavy, like a suffocating blanket. It pressed down on you, filled your lungs with the taste of graveyard dirt and the metallic tang of fear. There were stories, always stories, whispered in hushed tones around crackling fires. Tales of those foolish enough to venture into the vengeful spirit cemetery, their curiosity outweighing their common sense. They told of blood-curdling screams echoing through the night, of shadows moving just beyond the reach of the flickering gaslights, of an icy hand that reached out from the darkness to snatch at their ankles. One story, whispered in hushed tones, involved a group of teenagers full of youthful bravado and a thirst for the unknown. They decided to spend a night in the cemetery, to prove their courage, to mock the stories that had haunted their childhoods. Armed with flashlights and a sense of invincibility that only youth can provide, they piled into a beat-up old car, its headlights cutting through the darkness as they navigated the dirt road leading to the cemetery gates. They parked just outside the rusted gates, their laughter echoing in the stillness, a jarring sound in that desolate place. The air grew noticeably colder as they stepped out of the car, the silence broken only by the sound of their own breathing and the frantic pounding of their hearts. They made their way through the overgrown pathways, their flashlights dancing across the weathered tombstones, illuminating the names of those long gone. They joked, they laughed, they pretended not to feel the oppressive weight of the cemetery pressing down on them, suffocating them with its ancient grief. But as the night wore on, the laughter died down, replaced by an uneasy silence. The air grew thick with the scent of decay and something else, something ancient and malevolent that made their skin crawl. They started to see things, fleeting glimpses of movement in the shadows, shapes that shifted and disappeared when they shone their lights on them. The whispers started, soft at first, like the wind rustling through the trees, but they grew louder, more insistent, swirling around them like a chorus of tormented souls. Young explorer as young explorer. One of the teenagers, a girl named Sarah, started to cry. She couldn't explain it, but she felt an overwhelming sense of dread, a feeling that something terrible was about to happen. Her friends tried to calm her down, but their words seemed to evaporate in the thick air. They decided to leave, to cut their losses and head back to town, but as they turned to go, they realized they were no longer alone. Standing at the end of the path, bathed in the pale moonlight, was a figure. It was tall and skeletal, its clothes tattered and decayed, its eyes glowing with an unnatural light. The teenagers froze, their blood turning to ice in their veins. The figure took a step towards them, and the whispers grew louder, more menacing. Sarah screamed, a high-pitched wail that pierced the silence, and the figure lunged. So there you have it, two chilling tales of haunted graveyards that should make you think twice about venturing out alone in the dark. If you're brave enough, or foolish enough, maybe you'll even visit one of these haunted resting places yourself. But be warned, you might not like what you find. Until next time, sleep tight and don't let the whispers keep you up at night.